Welcome to Massive Beers. My name is Matt. We do the beer stuff here. A beer I can't believe I haven't reviewed just because it kind of seems like, I don't know, these things kind of bleed in my brain that I've done them before or whatever. Other Half. We've done about Other Half beers, but broccoli? You're telling me I've never reviewed this beer. As far as me just typing the word broccoli into YouTube, or my channel of YouTube, and not coming up with anything means I haven't reviewed it, which is weird because it's kind of like one of their, like, staple beers? What would their flagship beer be? Showers? Forever and ever? Which, honestly, that beer I buy a ton of. And I haven't reviewed that one either, so I'm going to follow up with that shortly. But, yeah, anyway, here in New Jersey, we get a decent amount of Other Half off the shelf now. Usually, depending on where I go, I can see a variation of anywhere between, like, 4 to 8 different beers typically on rotation. Some are very kind of consistent. Forever and Ever is almost always around. Green City is quite readily available. And this is probably their biggest ABV offering that is their double IPA offering that is kind of readily available. So you have Forever and Ever, which is their low ABV jam, their IPA, which is Green City, and then this. And like I said, I've had it several times. Recently. Figured might as well review it. Let's dive into it. Other Half, it's their broccoli, double India Pale Ale, Imperial India Pale Ale, double dry hopped India Imperial Pale Ale, if we get it correct, per the label. This is brewed by Other Half Brewing Company, Brooklyn, New York, so I assume it's a Brooklyn jam. It says it on there. It doesn't say anything on the bottom. I believe if you get beers from any of the other locations, it kind of calls that out actually in the stamp on the bottom. It could be wrong there. Hazy Imperial IPA brewed with hand-selected blend of hops, giving notes of pineapple, citrus, mango, and white grape. Does not include broccoli. It is 7.9% alcohol by volume, so it's a Mosaic, Simcoe, Nelson Sauvin, Strata, Mosaic, Cryo, Simcoe Cryo hop beer. Let's dive into it. Yeah. Probably a little noisy in here. Air conditioner's going. It's kind of hot. Wanted to review it. Didn't feel like turning it off. You can deal with it. Anyway, so let's see what's what. Label-wise, it's classic Other Half. Let's put it that way. It almost kind of qualifies as a massive beer review classic, just because this beer's been around for so long, but we're not going to put it in there, because I'd get all the hate in the world. But just something about their labels, like, has grown on me over the years, from reviewing their stuff from very early on. I think their IPA game has actually gone through very big fluctuations over time, but over the past several years, they've been essentially on point pretty much more often than not. And their whole kind of, geometric pattern, kind of repetitive pattern kind of label thing is they kind of created that. That's their thing. A lot of people do it now, but they did it first, and they do it well. So I dig the label. It's basically what I'm saying. And they have that little, cutout, contour cut label. I can dig on it. That looks like really well done Hazy IPA. It's just bursting with this nice kind of pear pineapple juice kind of coloration to it. Just under a pinky finger of a just barely micron off-white head, but just has this soft richness to it. That glow you come to expect from a really well done hazy double Imperial IPA. Let's get a nose. And this is the thing, and this is where this beer, we'll have this conversation a little bit later. Aromatically, and hopefully in the taste, it's one of those beers that it's just like, why am I going after other things kind of beer? And that's kind of where a lot of these Other Half shelfies end up coming, but we'll talk about that later. Anyway, gobs and gobs of hops. You know what I mean? Running the gamut from your tropical fruits to your pineapple, even that white grape thing they throw out there is definitely in play. Aromatically, it's just bursting at the seams. It's not even 8%. You're talking about 7.9%. Just everything. That citrus to the stone fruit to that star kind of tropical fruit, just ripping and tearing with this nice kind of green that is very much kind of non-ranky weediness with a little bit of green grassiness going on with it. And this subtle, soft kind of milk lactosey kind of oaty characteristic to it. Does it contain lactose? They don't say it does. Does it contain lactose? Probably. and in very small doses, but let's say it doesn't, it has to be a heavily oated beer if it doesn't, but it has that kind of shaved edge sweetness that adds this soft kind of confectioneriness to it that kind of, I think, is almost a given, almost a needed thing when it comes to these kind of world-class, like very, very well done kind of hazies. Let's just dive in. Cheers, y'all. I mean, there's kind of like a personal, I guess probably a lot of you have this going on, but there's a checklist that I want to check off when it comes to what makes a hazy IPA really, really work for me. Mouthfeel. It's got to be, depending on the ABV level, depending on the kind of hazy I'm diving into. It's got to be full. It's got to be rich. It's got to have this nice kind of density and fluffy creaminess to it. A little bit lighter. You can go a little bit less, a little lower ABV, a little bit lighter, maybe denser triple IPA. You want something might be a little bit denser. That's exactly what I want at this 7.9% ABV. Silky, creamy, almost like a IPA version of a porter kind of thing going on here. So it has this softness and richness to it. Hop presence is key here. You know what I mean? But let's talk about the bittering first. It's not a drop out all bitterness beer by any stretch of the imagination. There is a greenness here that kind of dances on both ends of the spectrum between a rankiness and a kind of greeny grassiness, a little bit more chlorophyll-y kind of thing going on here, to where it does have a little punchiness to it. And that's what I'm talking about, the rankiness. It has a little punchiness to it, has a little bit of stanky weediness to it. But it also has that little bit of soft green grassiness. When I used to talk about walking behind the mower IPAs, it has that going for it. It's not like punching you in the face, but it's definitely there. On the other end of the spectrum, you have those copious amounts of fruits that you typically get from a lot of the new school hops when they're done really, really well and a really well done IPA. Except you're getting hit from every different direction here. You have this kind of, that punchy kind of stone fruitiness where you get the kind of, slightly underripened kind of peachiness with that little bit of aggressiveness to it. Again, same thing on the citrus end. We're not dealing with orange here. We're dealing with grapefruit, pineapple, something a little bit sharper. Again, on the citrus fruit, that kind of thing, you want to think of underripened kind of kiwi, kind of mango kind of thing going on, to where it's not overly sweet, but it's punchy and zippy and stuff like that. So you have that nice kind of juxtaposition between that bittering of that greenness and both that kind of danky and grassy thing with that nice kind of fruitiness that is slightly underripened, but it's punchy but not hyper aggressive, but at the same time still omnipresent. And the malt base, not really there. And that's the point of these beers. A lot of these kind of eschew the malts on purpose, because they want to have something that has that, what I call that touch of lactose they don't tell you about, kind of mouthfeel to it, and kind of sweetness to it, to where the sweetness of the beer, mostly I would assume, is derived from an oat addition, a little bit of malt, and mostly brewer sugar. So you get this kind of sweetness to it that is, I was going to just say there. It's more than there. That is up front, but with shaved edges. I always talk about these shaved edges. More often than not, I talk about shaved edges when it comes to aged beer, barley wines, things like that. But I think that's really a crucial need in a lot of these kind of single double IPAs, the new school variety, is having that kind of lactose dosed, heavily oated, kind of shaved edge sweetness, to where you're not getting that hard candy. You're not getting that saccharine sweetness. You're getting a sweetness, but there's a rise and fall that has a very long trail to it, to where you don't get that sickly sweetness on the edges. And I think that's very, very crucial for having these beers hit really well, at least for me. I think that's across the board, but I'm only speaking about what I find to be a really good beer. And honestly, double IPA wise, Imperial IPA wise, you're going to be really hard pressed to find something much, much better than this. And that's kind of where these beers kind of like make me think about, what am I doing and where am I spending my money? I'm doing a lot of the classics now. I'm diving into a lot of like old school beers. And that's great. because not only is old school beer fun, but it's also readily available, usually at a decent price point. That's where these hazies are starting to become. They're starting to exist in that realm. Forever and ever. It's their 4 and change, 4.8, 4.9, 4.7. Hazy Pale. Hazy. It's an IPA in the pale form. I can get that for $13.99. Green City, $17.99. This, $20.99. I don't think I was ever on board with the line waiting IPA thing. I have gone to places and waited in line for IPAs. But it was never something I chased, and I understand the want for that. It used to be to find something of this level. It used to be a bit more harder to come by. A lot of breweries seem to still cultivate the same kind of want and need, to the point where a lot of times a lot of breweries are making the same beer over and over again, tweaking very minor things and slapping the label on it. I'm not saying other half is immune to that, but with their core lineup, those 3 beers that I keep mentioning, as something that I can just pull off a shelf and get not just great beer, but at a decent price. Listen, $21 for a 4-pack of double IPA, that would have been something that would have got me on my soapbox and freaked out. But in today's day and age, especially post-pandemic, and that price really hasn't changed since they released the beer, I'm going to say it's okay. Why would I try? Why? I understand a want for something new and want for something fresh and want for something whatever, but to walk in my local bottle shop, be able to pick this up at a whim whenever I want and get this level of hazy IPA, which, hey, might not be your jam, but I can get down with a really tasty hazy. I love that. I love the idea of being able to get this whenever I want, at a decent price point, and have it be consistent. And I think it's a long way from those days of people getting shot at outside of other half at late at night from people that don't like people that wait in line for beer. God, when was that? Anyway, but yeah. Is it one of the better Imperial IPAs I've had as of late? Yes. North Shore status? Yes. Hazy wise? Yeah. What? Have I had better ones than this? Probably. Were they markedly better than this? Probably not. I think that makes, I don't know, sense? At least my taste buds take it. That's all I know. Value and availability, like I said, already touched on that. It is what it is. Price point is kind of just market value now. So, and availability, you can get it wherever I want. I can pick this up at several different locations now. In New Jersey, North New Jersey. I don't know how it is by you, but with other half basically taking over the world and having different outposts and breweries and every stretch of the universe, I'm sure you can get it too. And leave you with, if you like what we like this, if you like hazy Imperial IPA, you're not afraid of a little bit of bitterness, and you like things that taste good. How about that? Other half, have you been to the brewery? Have you been to the other half, the original location? That's about the size of my shed on the inside. Have you been to their newer locations? Have you been to the several locations in New York City? Have you been to the several locations in outside of New York? Have you been to the locations in DC? Have you been to locations in Philly? Have they bought Anchor yet? I don't know. Have you been in any of those locations? Let me know what you think. Have you had, and this would be a fun conversation, have you had any of their beers at several different locations, and have you had any kind of variance to them? Have you had this particular batch? I didn't even say how old this beer was, by the way. It's a little over a month old. It's the June 07, 2023 beer. Have you had this one? All that fun stuff down there. There you go. Review in the books. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully you're enjoying a bit hazy right now. Hope to see you next time. Cheers, y'all.